Para vlogger mode. Sabi nga, pag-usapan natin na Paris. At of course, not in the context of football or yung mga ganun. Ang pag-usapan natin talagang upcoming French politics at saka elections particularly, of course. Bukas na po yung first round ng kanilang presidential elections at mukhang yung nanay, yung version ng tatay ng France ay may chance talaga this time na hindi lang ma-clear ng first round katulad ng previous presidential elections, pero mukhang may chance na maging competitive pa sa runoff elections. Nako po ang France. Ang France po, kamusta po kayo dyan? Kumusta va? Kamusta na kayo dyan? Mukhang papunta na rin sila in the direction of alam na this, diba? At mukhang yung rehabilitation strategy ng mga nanay nila dyan, yung National Front, no? Medyo parang mga talamano style nila, mukhang gumagana na. So, the latest projections by the economists has significantly increased the chances of Marine Le Pen of even pulling off a victory in the runoff elections. Buti nga yung France may runoff elections. So hindi lang one time, big time. Dapat at more than 50% plus ka at least sa first round para maging presidente. Kaya yan ang usually ang deal dyan sa mga elections around the world. Hindi katulad ng Pilipinas na one time, big time. So may runoff elections. So may pag-asa pa si Emmanuel Macron to get some support from here and there in the second round. Pero grabe, yung lead ni Macron ay talagang, nag-evaporate totally. So, nung other month, nung nandun tayo sa Paris, and I met their folks from the government, French minister, I met some of the experts there from European Council on Foreign Relations, etc. Mukhang may confidence doon na medyo well, I mean, of course, the officials don't make political statements domestically, but you had a sense that there'll be continuity. Later this year and beyond. And continuity means Emmanuel Macron, right? Macron. Remember before there were all of these young leaders na sikat, Zelensky, Jacinda Ardern, so on and so forth, and si Vico Soto, Isco for a while, ganon. There was actually Emmanuel Macron, siya yung leader na under 40 pa lang, he was running for the president of France and he pulled it off very successfully. English speaking, cosmopolitan, etc. But, maraming French na ngayon, tingin nila kay Macron ay trapo, na he's just another traditional politician, he's just another guy muddling through, he's not caring about the interest of the ordinary French, at hindi, tinitignan yung interest ng mga kabataan. So one of the interesting thing that has a lot of parallels dito sa Pilipinas is yung fact na in France, yung youth vote ay increasingly nagtitilt towards alamano, diba? Alamano, diba? Pupunta na yung mga youth vote dyan sa France. So mukhang Marine Le Pen was able to attract a lot of young votes by promising them tax breaks, fiscal incentives, all sorts of different concrete policy measures na wala doon sa mga ibang candidates. Kasi usually, ang mga millennials or mga kabataan sa France are more attracted doon sa leftist politics, etc. But Mélenchon, the candidate of the left, the de facto candidate of the left na competitive sa race na to, he's not doing as well. So, grabe yung nangyari sa France. And 5 years ago, Macron pulled off that upset and victory against both establishment candidates and Marine Le Pen, although the second round was not that surprising. But this time, Macron, I think, only gave one campaign speech and then boom! Diba? Talagang humabol talaga. Pakita ko lang sa inyo paano humabol si Le Pen. Grabe, medyo next level Yung graph, yung habol talaga ni Marine Le Pen ay grabe talaga. So, I mean, why should we care? Sabihin nila, pa-French politics ka, social, mga ganun sabihin. No. You know what? Of course, social tayo, given na yan. But, I mean, come on. France is a flagship democracy, no? Yung nangyari sa France has repercussions around the world. Of course, as a major power, France, yes, they're still major. I know medyo Americo, imperial. I mean, the French are permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. They have they are a nuclear power. No, they send submarines, warships dito sa atin, and they're the second largest economy after Germany in the European Union, EU, right? So they're a big force. They're a big force to reckon with. So what happens in France has a lot of implication. Ideologically, of course, wag natin kalimutan, ang France po ay cradle of Republican politics, no? Sa kanila talagang nangyari yung pinaka-radical revolution in, of course, early modern history, yung French Revolution. And the French Revolution reverberated throughout history. You had the 1848 revolutions and also the different revolutions, Romania, Russia, China, etc., who were inspired by what happened in France. So what happens in the French elections has a lot of implications around the world. This is not just another sophisticated conversation. No, this is not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to look at is what's going on. Yung tatay ng US, si Trump, naku po, he got the second highest vote ever in US history. Although natalo siya nung si Uncle Joe, di ba, ni Biden. But that was like, for a while, parang for one day, medyo lahat yun, mga supporters ni Biden and all, kabado sila kasi nanalo si Trump dun sa ibang swing state katulad ng Florida, etc. But eventually, na-pull off ni Biden yung victory niya by building this kind of mass coalition and all. Of course, kina-question ni Trump yan, mga Philippine style, di ba? Walang natalo lahat, nanalo sa elections or natayan. But France, this time, could be in a much more delicate situation. Medyo peligroso, no? Grabe yung biglang pick ng numbers ni Madame Le Pen, di ba? At Le Pen has been doing what is not very different from what the Lamanos have been doing here, which is gradual rehabilitation of their image, making themselves more appealing to the masses, making themselves look as, in fact, even progressive, making themselves look as the alternative to traditional politics. At kung makikita mo ni dyan, yung sila Le Pen, kasi syempre they're known as anti-immigrant, they're known as far-right party, inakusan sila na racist sila, inakusan sila na well, anti-EU sila, na parang gusto rin nila yung version ng Brexit ng ginawa ng Britain, version sa kanila will be more isolationist. Medyo Trumpian, no? Medyo Trumpian. But if you look at Le Pen, what she's trying to do is she's reinventing the far right. So, Zemmour, who's the other medyo, yung tatay candidate nila these elections, he's the one taking up the mantle of, he's the one taking up the, essentially the role of the far-right guy on anti-immigration, almost racist and all yung bang sinasabi niya, ayon sa mga critics na. So Le Pen is now kind of moving to the center, looking a little bit more very statesman-like, etc., and focusing on really concrete issues on the ground. Now, I don't want to overdo this analysis on France because there'll be a second round of elections. Pwede pa natin pag-usapan yung nangyayari sa France next week, especially after the first round. Who knows? Le Pen may even get higher share of the votes than Macron. And if Macron has really alienated a lot of people on the left, many people may not show up. So even in the runoff, he may not do as well as he did in the last elections, no? Which was just good enough in the first round. And in the second round, enough people didn't want Le Pen to win. That's why they reluctantly voted for Macron. But still, there was a lot of people who didn't vote in the second round of elections in France 5 years ago. So let's see. Kasi kung populist, nanay, tatay style ang mag-take over ng France, naku po, ma-energize si Putin, ma-energize yung mga ibang far-right parties in Europe, baka ma-energize pa yung mga Lamanos, di ba, around the world. So, yan ang pwedeng mangyari talaga dito yan. So, in many ways, we may not be in exactly the same boat, but we are rowing in the same lake. That's what I'm saying here, man. This is crazy. I mean, you would have thought, after Macron pulled off that first victory against Le Pen, that they would have learned something. He would have tried to build a strong coalition from the left to the center right, etc. But that's not what happened. And Macron has been accused of trying to be the modern Napoleon with a lot of grandstanding, grand foreign policy statements and all. But pagdating sa domestic, mukhang he's losing a little bit of his grip on the youth votes. Well, on the left, marami alienate sa kanila. Noong una nanalo si Macron, ang dami niya mga young academics, young experts around him. A number of them have resigned and have been critical of him so much throughout the year. So, medyo cautionary tales. So, yung mga tao na medyo disappointed kay Isko, well, guess what? Paano rin yung nangyari kay Macron, no? But let's see, maybe Macron can still pull it off because they have a run of elections after all, di ba? Baka doon, maswerte pa sila. Pero ngayon, medyo delix. Now, balikan natin ng Pilipinas. I have around 10 to 15 minutes kasi may talk na ako. Kailangan natin mag-change costume, maging respectable na ako ulit. Hindi na ako vlogger. Medyo mga Asian society people, mga ganun kausap natin. At saka mga ibang experts. So, magpalit tayo mamaya. Okay. Update ko rin kayo. You'll have a copy soon, hopefully, of my interview with the Ukrainian ambassador the other day about the situation in Ukraine and what Ukraine is looking forward to. Mukhang very confident among Ukrainians that they can beat the Russians conventionally more and more as the Russians have withdrawn from the northern regions of Kiev area, those areas towards the south and the east. So now mukhang the war is moving there. And let's see. So yon, talagang interesting ito. As I said, France is important because it's a flagship democracy, is a United Nations Security Council permanent member, it's a nuclear power, marami siyang ginagawa dito sa Asia, it's a force to reckon with. At the same time, France ideologically is the cradle of Republican politics, in many ways modern democracy along with Americans. Not the Greek style, that ancient style na may slave pa sila na only 5% could vote. No, that's not really our role model for modern representative democracy. So what happens in France is gonna send ripples. You know, it's gonna send shockwaves across the world. No, so let's see what's gonna happen. Again, nung nasa Paris ako the other month, you know, there was a sense of confidence about this song for France that Macron can pull this off. In fact, even more comfortably, dahil divided yung vote ng far right among 2 or 3 candidates. Meron kang Le Pen, etc. But Le Pen has been very smoothly and suavely repositioning herself as a candidate of both right and left in a very classic populist way by picking up policies, some progressive policies from the left on taxation issues, fiscal support for the youth. At the same time, parang given na yung credentials na she's going to be tough on immigration, she's going to be critical of EU, she's going to be much more perhaps isolationist in terms of her foreign policy, etc. So interesting, very interesting, very interesting. So yun, Paris, yan pong ginagawa natin dito. We talk about the whole world. And of course, as I said, I'm not going to overdo this because there'll be the first round soon, within a day or so, and then let's see what will happen from there towards the second round and what is Macron going to do. I think Macron just did one campaign rally ahead of the presidential election. So, medyo relax mode siya. So, tingnan natin what's going to happen. Now, dito sa Pilipinas, kamusta naman ang Pilipinas? So, by the way, i-post ako, may article ako just lumabas kahapon about Philippine-China relations. What could happen under the next president, etc. Mukhang the Chinese are not leaving anything to chance. Tumawag po si Xi Jinping kay tatay, at nag-remind na baka naman, pwede natin siguraduhin na tuloy-tuloy ang ating friendships, beshi times. So, very, very interesting. Because it's not very usual for Chinese leaders, Chinese president in particular, to call an outgoing president. Siyempre si tatay naman, sir, ganun na. So ito yung sinabi ni Xi Jinping, no? President ng China. So nag-warn siya sa Pilipinas na essentially wag tayo masyado sa mga Amerikano. Kasi siyempre, ito, patapos na si Tatay Digong, biggest ever balikatan in recent memory ang nangyari. Kamusta naman, tatay? Akala ko pa independent foreign policy ganun. Alam na this. Right? So ito yung sinabi ni Xi Jinping. International developments prove once again that regional security cannot be achieved by strengthening military alliances, and China is willing to work with the Philippines and countries in the region to keep the leadership of regional security firmly in its own hands and to join and maintain the hard-won peace and stability in the region. Okay, alam na, parang kahit isa ako yung mata ko, alam ko yung sasabihin nila I'm very familiar with their lingo. And this is very important. Xi Jinping called for maintenance of continuity and consistency in the Philippines policy. I mean, bilateral relations, and has promised that his country will work to properly deal with South China's issues. Well, I think sinabi ni Duterte, he promised that the Philippines will properly deal with South China's issues to set an example for peaceful resolution of disputes while maintaining regional peace and stability. Okay, ano ko na sabi na? In short, sabi ng China, oy, baka yung sumunod sa'yo, make sure, katulad mo rin, ano mo na, this and that. Tapos si Duterte naman, don't worry, si Junior nang bahala sa inyo. Ganon, essentially, yan ang konteksto. And of course, alam natin, hindi natuwa yung China na yung biggest balikatan exercise recent memory nangyayari. Just recently, di ba? May amphibious exercises pa. Nakita natin yung mga chopper na Black Hawk na kinuha natin. I think it was that from Poland. Ginamit na troops natin. Of course, tinitignan ng China dyan. But kamusta naman? Sa nangako ng China, tuloy-tuloy yung investments. Akin naman, sana naman yung mga investments. Name me a single big-ticket infrastructure investment project by China that is really in an implementation stage. Hindi yung hindi yung mga yung bridge dyan sa Makati na 2-lane, then 4-lane, then 2-lane. Hindi mga ganun na totoong big ticket infrastructure projects. Marami dyan na-cancel dahil incomplete yung bidding, documents, shady companies involved. Naku po, interest rates, questionable. May mga questionable provisions of investments na could be inimical to our national interest. Tignan naman yung sa Sri Lanka. My goodness, ito yung bansa na sobrang umasa. May mga tatay din sila, Rajapaksa, ganun, mga brothers tatays. Umasa sa China, invest. Ngayon, bankrupt ang Sri Lanka. Nako po, laki ng problema. Napakagandang bansa pa naman yun. So, yun. Ayan. Ayusin mo nga itong ginagawan to. Ayan, yun natin itong perfect attendance color. Yan. So, yun. Medyo ibang mode tayo. Medyo weekend. So, yun. Tapos earlier, nag-usap din si former Mr. Wang Yi of China kay Teddy Boy Locsin. At yun din, he warned against disturbances in our very friend relations. Ibang klase, may instructions ng Beijing sa atin. Ha? May instructions na sa next administration, may instructions na sa outgoing administration. Ibang klase. Habang yung Amerika, wala man lang ambassador dito sa Pilipinas. Kahit ano ba, charge d'affaires, meron ba sila? Ibang klase. Ano ba nangyari sa mundo? Ano nangyari sa mundo? So, yun. Ayan, kay Lenny, nakita natin. Ayan, patapos na. Medyo 5 minutes na. Kay Lenny, nakita po natin. Ayan, may mga grand rallies na naman daw, ha? Davao is pink? Ano ba nangyari sa Davao? May nakita akong Davao is pink the other day. Tapos, biglang yun, nagsishare ng iba, yung Publicus Asia survey, mga ganon. Ewan ko. Tingnan natin what's gonna happen. I mean, one of the things that I realized is on the surface, similar yung mga surveys, but actually if you look at the nitty-gritties, ang laki ng mga gaps and divides. For instance, numbers on ISCO and NCR are very different in Pulse Asia and Publicus Asia. Some of the ones I saw, which is like, And mamaya tayo mag-comment dyan. Pero yun. Sabi ko nga, ang hunch ko talaga, the race is more like 30-45. Siguro ganun, between Lenny and Marcos Jr. And, and as I said, ISCO is the dark horse. If ISCO picks up, and most likely that will be at the expense of the front runner, then this race could be more competitive, and yes, potentially in favor of Lenny. And then, let's see what Manny Pacquiao will do. Malabo na mag-withdraw siya, mag-endorse kay Lenny, etc. Maraming factors involved dyan. But if he does that, who knows? It could create a new kind of multiplier effect, psychological impact, so on and so forth. So, yon. Ayan na. Ano daw? Forma mo kailangan? Anong forma? Ayun na itong sporty mode natin. Paris Saint-Germain. Yung style natin ngayon, di ba? Ayan. Ayun naman. Next time, balik tayo sa Barcelona, Catalonian style. Yan, Catalan. Yeah, we'll do that next time. Alright? Okay. So, yon. Just some updates sa mga nangyari around the world. Yan. Kamusta kayo dyan? Uy, thank you sa mga nagbigay ng stars. Kahit mga pinag-usapan natin, Paris, French politics, etc. Mukhang may mga natuwa dyan. Kasi alam mo mga criticism dyan, bakit natin sa France? Uy, pasosyal ka lang. Parang, hello! France is like the cradle of Republican politics. Ako, I'm not a super big fan of some of the some of the French whatever, but respect to France, man, they are very important to the global democratic march, and they have a lot of internal problems, very serious problems. Kasi the other month nga, I went from Germany to France, parang yung Paris parang dami mga ghetto style na tapos may mga graffiti paglabas mo ng airport. Ang layo dun sa Germany na napakalinis lahat, napaka-discipline, clean, ganun. Maraming problema ang France. They have a lot of issues. And mukhang nag-collapse yung center-left parties nila, yung Socialist Party, and Mélenchon, the candidate of left, major far left, is not doing perhaps as well as some of his supporters wanted him to do. And Macron perhaps was a little bit complacent. And now Le Pen is leveraging Zemmour and some of the other Verkront and some of the other candidates moving to the far right. So she's a little bit moving to the center, at least on the surface and in terms of some of her policies. So let's see. Kung yung nanay ng France naman ay may chance. At kung may nanay sila, tapos malay mo yung tatay Trump na yan, biglang mag-ambisyon din. Alam na this. Kamusta na? Diba? Anong petsa na? Como ça va? Diba? Yun. Thank you very much. Yan, sabi ni Kathleen, Davao is pink. Yun nga yung sinasabi ko may Pampanga is pink. Tapos Rizal is pink. Sabi nung Twitter the other day. Parang hindi nyo pinansin masyado yung public as Asia. Kayo Ayun na. Philippines is pink. Sabi nung isa. Sabi ni Red Apple. Thank you very much kay Genevieve for your stars and your supports. Sabi ni Zenaida, may problema with racism, etc. dun sa European country na pinag-usapan natin. Yes, especially against some of the minority groups, people from North Africa, among others. It's a serious issue, yeah. And, some of the right-wing parties are taking advantage of that. Among the left, the progressive parties, not much really, say in these elections. It's really a fight among all sorts of 4 different right-wing candidates. Macron is the most centrist one. And then, pick your, alam na this. Ayan. So, pakialam dapat kayo, panoorin nyo rin tomorrow, yung first round, anong mangyari sa France. Because I have a weird sense that, I'm just saying, even if matalo si Le Pen, if she does very well in the first round, I'm just saying. Then it becomes an issue of a matter of time. The same way that some would say the Marcoses, it was just a matter of time. Diba? Alright, maraming salamat. Meron akong talk ngayon. Kailangan ko magpalit. Medyo hindi na vlogger style. Back to my own serious, very academic, le professional style. Alright? Maraming salamat. Ayan, Davao is pink. Sabi nung isa, Pangasinan kahapon daw, sabi ni Harold. You know? Yun! Sige, salamat guys. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon. Alright? Keep in touch and keep supporting us. And yung stars nyo rin for my Wi-Fi, my internet, my online, my Facebook, my FB Alive. Yan, mga ganyan. Huwag niyong kalimutan, ha? Uy, 74,000 daw, nag-attend dun sa Pangasinan. Ibang klase, malaki. Mukhang pagdating sa grand rallies and volunteers, alam na natin. At yun nga, Paris is not pink. Medyo nag-red na rin ng Paris. Tingnan natin yan. Ayan, wala na nga silang pink candidate. Ang labanan dyan, blue versus red.